A hovercraft company that claims it can transport passengers from Toronto to the Niagara region in 30 minutes has announced that it's closer to launch after cruising past a key milestone. Hoverlink Ontario Inc. says following 3 years of consultation, it's finalized an agreement to secure a landing in the western gap of the Toronto Harbour. Hoverlink says it could make as many as 48 trips daily, which it estimates would result in 8,000 fewer cars a day on the QEW when running at full capacity. Currently, the 120-kilometer trip from Toronto to the Niagara region takes more than an hour and a half by car without traffic. Joining me now in studio is Chris Morgan, CEO of the Hoverlink Ontario Inc. Chris, thank you so much for the time today.
Pleasure being here. Thanks for your time.
Now, I want to start first off with congratulating you on this amazing milestone. This is exciting.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more real. I think only having one location, like I said earlier, it's just it's like a ride. We have enough of those. So we've got to get people A to B and B to A and do it 365 days a year.
So what inspired you and your team to come up with this Hoverlink idea?
I started as a kind of the sole person playing with these ideas. It was we were in a little pub in a little town called Hopwis in England. I'm a firstborn Canadian in our family of British immigrants. So every summer I went over to England and I learned about hovercrafts all the time. It was just normal there. And then when they were saying to me, Uncle Chris, could you design and look at the ways that hovercrafts could help in Canada and what would they do? So I just took it upon myself to say, okay, I'll just start researching it. And that was, the first week of November 2011. And then it just kind of grew. I was a pessimist at first, and then it started making sense. And my R&D mind said it shouldn't make sense. There's failed attempts. And it kind of grew. And then working with a number of folks around the world over the years, I leaned on them and said, can you give me your perspective? And let's try and punch holes in this thing. It's a constant R&D approach. So I think that's how it started. Yeah, it was nothing.
And can you walk us through how the technology works and how Hoverlink is able to reduce the commute time down to 30 minutes?
I think ultimately you're not going to get comfortable with commuters and people who want to travel between the two destinations unless you offer 12 months of the year. So then understanding, that technology, there's one or two crafts that can go over ice, land, water comfortably at high speeds. And the technology is basically a hovercraft and how it works and how we manage it. So being from Britain, where Christopher Cockerell was the inventor of it in 1955, and again, they had a number of 5 or 6 companies over the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and it was just a normal, passage of moving people to the continent. And so I just grew up with it, and I said, okay, let's have a look at it. And I explained to people, it's almost like a air hockey puck. We're Canadian, we play air hockey. So it's really like that. Instead of the air blowing up, the air blows down from the craft, and they hold it inside its skirt, and she just moves along. So then that's really it.
Now, traffic is a major issue in the GTA, and you laugh because it is true and it is relatable.
It's growing everywhere. I spent some time in California and watched it. You build more highways, they're just going to fill them up.
Well, with this Hoverlink, what are the environmental impacts, but as well, what are the traffic impacts going to be with this idea that you've created?
Well, it's a team that did it. It's collectively a lot of folks that hopped on this journey with me. So I think the big piece is understanding how you manage that process and help people get through to movement on water in Ontario. And I think ultimately it's just trying to understand the go-to-market strategy. So did I answer that exactly the way you want me to answer it? Give me a little bit more and I'll drill
Are there
deeper.
promotional steps that you and your team are going to be taking to encourage commuters to switch from using the Hoverlink opposed to driving their cars?
I think when they look at the green environment that we're all globally responsible for, they're going to say, let's get you out of your car. Let's get your time back. If it's a 3-hour journey into Toronto, that's a lengthy time. And so if we can carve that down to half an hour, and you start looking at that, I'm going, what am I spending in time? What's my time worth? I mean, COVID taught us that.
Right.
That maybe family time and some self-importance to say, I want to work, but I want to work to live, not live to work. And so how do we manage that? So I think that's really important for people, and moving in a way like the craft makes no wake or wash. She now with these new engines, these new Rolls-Royce engines, we're using biodiesel 100. And there's rumors that methanol will come soon. And then the only thing that's coming out of those exhausts is moisture, like
Right.
water. So I think it's that, making no wake or wash, safe on the environment, which is important, for species and marine life, flora, fauna, particularly in BC. We've been out in BC a lot looking, and, they're very in touch with nature. And I think understanding that we're not doing damage and not making wakes and shoreline protection issues and even sound. It took a number of years to get the propeller systems and the prop ducts, the way the designers have done it, to be very quiet. So I think it's just how do you make hovercrafts play nicely with urban centers was the task. And over the years, the predecessors are mostly for military and Coast Guard. So they don't care about fuel and sound. They just want to get the job done.
Right. And will this be a year-round method of transportation?
Yes.
Or so
Yes.
not just seasonal? Because I think a lot of people, when they hear of Hoverlinks, they're thinking this is just going to be a summer thing.
No, the whole premise for how we landed on hovercrafts was we talked about technology, but that might be the only technology that can connect the North Shore and South Shore together 12 months of the year, because you still get ice that comes through Niagara Falls and down and out. And most vessels can't go high speed that aren't above the ground. So she hovers about a meter above the ground. When you see her, she's got a skirt, but she's actually not touching. And it's pretty exciting when you say, okay, now we can connect you 12 months of the year. Now it makes sense that you could work in Toronto and live here, and vice versa. You could live in Toronto, go to school here, or visit here, and understanding its capacity and speed and time. So yeah, we're pretty excited. It's something that, I went to Ottawa and I met with a number of MPs, and I think 67 of them in 3 days. And they said, my goodness, what else can you do with this? And I said, well, I think it's just understanding the technology. And every decade, whether Christopher Cockerell's like, Henry Ford or the Wright brothers, he invented it, but necessity bears out innovation. Well, we didn't have any necessity to change it because we started loving our automobiles, going in tunnels and doing different things. For us now, it's the necessity is we've got to move around in a different way. We need to start using the water again, which, you look 150 years ago, First Nations, how did we all trade with them on the waterways? So we need to look at that and say, let's give this a 21st century upgrade and all the latest, greatest technologies, put that together. And that's the next generation of hovercrafts. And
how big is this hovercraft? And ideally, how many people will it be able to commute?
So we played around with different volumes of passengers. And so the one we land on, she's 180 passenger capacity. You can bring your bicycles on. They're wheelchair friendly. I spent a lot of time. My mom worked at Blue River Children's Hospital for years, so I grew up with March of Dimes and helping out where you can. And I think that's a big part of it. And imagine you can take your bicycle to Toronto, and you just take it off the rack and off you go, just like a bus. That was foreign 20 years ago to say, oh, I can put my bicycle on the bus. So I think that's where we are. And if each craft is destined for a maximum of 12 trips over and 12 trips back, each one's done 24 in a day. There may be some parts of the season where you go slower because there's less traffic in the winter until we build that economic growth and activity in the winter. So yeah, it's just, it's doing those numbers and working through it and seeing what makes sense.
And what are some of the major hurdles before becoming operational? And is there a realistic timeline for when it's going to be up and running? I think there are a number of hurdles. We are shovel ready here in Niagara. We have 18 acres of greenfield. That took 3 years of processes. And again, we're on federal land, so we are, expected to do many levels. And I think, like even for instance, the Department of Fisheries Oceans, we can't go in and disturb the water surface between the 1st of March and the end of June because we need to respect the spring spawn. So we don't go in to do that right yet. So I'm kind of locked out of doing anything. And I need to go into the water first to do the slope because the craft in St. Catharines will come up on land and go into her hangars or the terminal. Then you get into the Migratory Bird Impact Assessment Act. So again, protecting species at risk and so on. So they don't want you really moving grass and shrubs and trees and things until between the 1st of May and the end of August. So we need to kind of be mindful of that too. And then, so it's kind of a all go September, October, November to get some infrastructure in that isn't going to impact wildlife in any manner. And then you start to build. So it's about 18 to 24 months worth of work, but we got some workarounds. So if we can pick up speed, great. A lot of our structures are prefab. So they're being built. So it's ready to launch. Put it and build it and get it ready. So I think that's it. And the craft takes considerable time to build. With
I call it T squared, Mr. Trump and his tariffs. It's changed where we might get the craft assembled. So we're just looking through that right now and seeing what's available in Europe to construct them for us, or maybe even here. Maybe we can step up and dust off our sleeves and say, let's get them here, because eventually we'd like to assemble them here all the time. We need to be a little bit more self-reliant in this country, and maybe this is one reason to show we need to lead rather than follow. So something my grandfather said: you're either a leader, a follower, or those who are told to kindly get out of the way.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations. This is an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.